In section 3 of chapter 2, we're going to solve multi-step equations. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to solve equations with more than one operation, and then also do some equation solving with things called consecutive integers. So remember when we go to simplify something, like if I give you 3x squared plus 12 times 2 minus 16, we use GEMDIS. So we look for grouping symbols. We do our exponents, multiplication and division are together, and then addition and subtraction after that. Since solving is the opposite of simplifying, we got to turn this around. The first thing we're going to do is undo addition and subtraction, then undo division and multiplication, then take care of any exponents we have, and then finally touch on the grouping symbols. So instead of GEMDIS, we have SADMEG. So let's solve each equation. I'm going to write out SADMEG for us. So remember, we have to do undo subtraction and addition first. So right here we have two things happening with x. It's being multiplied by 11, and 4 is being subtracted from it. So that's what I'm going to undo first. So the opposite of subtracting 4 is adding 4. And we learned yesterday that whatever we do to one side, we got to do to the other. Our inverse and identity properties allow us to cross those off, and we're left with 33 over here. So now we can undo division and multiplication. The opposite of multiplying by 11 is dividing. Inverse and identity properties allow us to cross those off, so we get x equals 3. And remember how we talked about in class today that you should know whether you get every single one of these problems right or wrong, because you can check it. So I should be able to plug in my answer and make sure that both sides check out. So 11 times 3 is 33, and if I take away 4, I definitely get 29. So I know without a doubt that I have the right answer. Now this next one's a little more intense because mathematicians always forget to write parentheses if we don't need them. Right here, there's technically some hidden parentheses because all of that stuff on top is being divided by 8. So when we go up back here to SADMEG and we want to undo stuff, even though this is addition and this is division, because this is in parentheses, that's a grouping symbol, it's going to be the very last thing that we undo. So when I look at this one, there's no addition and subtraction because this is in parentheses. So the first thing I have to undo is the division and multiplication. So this is being divided by 8 right now, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 8. Inverse and identity properties cross that off, and I get a plus 7 equals 40. And now these parentheses here aren't really necessary because it's not shielding us from anything. So now we can go back and we can undo this plus 7 from both sides, and we end up with 33. And just like the last one, we can check it. 33 plus 7, all divided by 8, equals 5. And remember that there's parentheses here, so you would add 33 and 7 first, then divide by 8, and 40 over 8 is definitely 5. So let's do a story. Hiroshi is buying a pair of water skis that are on sale for 2/3 of the original price. After he uses a $25 gift card, the total cost before taxes is $115. What was the original price of the skis? We need to write an equation and then solve it. So 2/3 of the original price means that we're going to take whatever the original is, so let's make it x, and multiply it by 2/3. And then he used a $25 gift certificate. So that means that he took off $25 more, and then he ended up paying $115. So here's our equation, and now we can solve it. So remember, SADMEG, undo subtraction and addition first, so that's what I'm going to add 25 to both sides. So I end up with 2/3 x equals 140. And then I can undo my division and multiplication. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal here. Remember, inverse and identity allows us to cross those off, so all we're left with is x. And then I can do this and get $210. Make sure your answer makes sense. This should be something bigger than the $115 that he paid for. So on to consecutive integers. Consecutive means in order. And remember, integers were numbers like -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. They're nice, pretty numbers. So consecutive integers are integers that are in order. Consecutive integers in order like 4, 5, and 6, or n plus 1, and n plus 2, are going to be what we're looking at. You're going to deal with consecutive integers, consecutive even integers, and consecutive odd integers. So consecutive numbers, like if I give you these numbers down here, like -5, -4, -3, the next one would be -2, then -1. Or if I give you 12, 13, 14, we'd have 15, and then 16. And if you notice, every single time here, we're just adding 1, because that's our next number in this sequence here. Add 1, add 1. So now if I give you something like x, to get to the next one, the step is the same. You're just going to add 1. So this would be x plus 1. And then to get to the next one, you're going to add another 1. So it would be x plus 1 plus 1. And we usually don't write things like that. So instead of writing that, we would write x plus 2. And if I asked you the next one, I would add 1 more. So it would be x plus 3. And we can keep on going all day long. So then you'd have even integers and odd integers. So if you think about numbers that you have, if I give you even numbers like 2, 4, 6, 8, instead of going up by 1, each of these go up by 2. Because if you go up by 1, you don't get an even number, you get an odd number. So if I give you -18, -16, -14, we'd add 2 more to get -12, and then 2 more to get -10. Or 20, 22, 24, 26. Either way, we're adding 2 each time for even integers. So let's say I gave you x. You would add 2. So this would be x plus 2. And then the next one you'd add 2 more. So it would be x plus 4. Now the weird thing about odd integers is the pattern is exactly the same. If I gave you odd numbers like 1, 3, 5, and 7, each of these are only 2 apart. Because if you only add 1, you get to an even number. So if I give you -13, -11, -9, add 2, we get -7, add 2, we get -5. And then this one picks up right there with -5, -3, -1, add 2, we get 1, and then 3. So the cool thing about this is even and odds are exactly the same. Because if you have an odd number, you want to add 2 to get to the next odd number. And same thing with evens. So you're going to get problems like this, where it says, write an equation for the following problem and then solve it. Find 3 consecutive integers with a sum of 21. So we want 3 numbers in a row, and these 3 numbers in a row have to sum or add to 21. So we have our first number, our second number, and our third number. Our first number we don't know, so let's make it x. Since they're consecutive integers, our next one we know has to be x plus 1. And then after that, has to be x plus 2. And then this problem tells us that all 3 of these have to add up to 21. So we have x plus our second number, which is x plus 1, plus our third number, which is x plus 2, and this has to equal 21. So here's our equation, and now we can solve it. First thing we gotta do is combine some like terms. So we have 3 x's plus 3 equals 21. We gotta subtract 3 from both sides, and then divide by 3. So we get x equals 6. Now don't just box that up and be done with the problem. Remember what that means. That means our first number is 6. Our second number would have to be 7, and our third number would have to be 8. Now double check this. Are these numbers all in a row? 6, 7, 8, they are. And do they add to 21? So 6 plus 8 gives me 14, and if I add 7 more, I do get 21. So your answer is 6, 7, and 8. You have to include them all. We're going to do this one in class because I want to see your faces as I explain it. So you can give it a try tonight, but we'll definitely do it together. I want you guys to try this one right now and make sure you can get k by itself. Check it when you're done so you know if you're doing it correct or not. And then try this problem right here that was just like the one I just did. Find 4 consecutive integers this time, and they have to add up to negative 142. Make sure you write down any questions if you have them, and we can go over them together in class.